Want to welcome you to the next episode of the Brainz Magazine podcast. And today we have Gem Dentith. Gem is a business change consultant. She's a transformational coach and she is the founder of the Undressed Method. How are you, Gemma?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the intro. Very well, thank you. And yeah, thanks for inviting me onto the podcast.
Absolutely. My first question actually was already, do you prefer Gemma or Gem? And straight off the bat, you said Gem. Any particular reason?
Oh, I've never been asked that before. So I think growing up, I was always a Gemma, maybe a Jemima when I was naughty. So Gem, I don't know. It's got a nice ring to it. It's short, it's sweet. It's just, yeah. I've grown into my shorter name, I think, as I've matured. So yeah, Gem, please.
Beautiful, Gem. Gem it is. So tell us about this undressed method. Obviously, I've known you for quite a while, so it's
Yeah.
always nice to be able to actually engage with someone that I have a relative understanding of, but there's plenty of people that haven't had the great opportunity of getting to know you yet, and you've got your own method, which I always find really fascinating. Firstly, what is it like to be a badass and have your own method? And secondly, what is the undressed method?
Oh, which question first? So I think the method came about because of my own transformational journey. I think most people get to a stage in life where they've gone through the kind of the corporate rat race, if I can say that, but you're being performative for many, many years. And then at some point you have a moment. And for me, my moment was blacking out on a train when I was pregnant with my now 10-year-old. And which for me was like a wake up moment. I've been climbing and chasing and striving and achieving for many, many years. And at that point, it was almost like the question I had was, what have I missed? What have I not seen? How am I doing life so wrong? Is this it? Surely there's more to life than just this. So for me, it was a 10-year journey of unraveling, a 10-year journey of undressing. And what I mean by undressing is undressing the performative masks, undressing the old identity, really stripping back and pulling my power back and coming back to me and who I am as a woman, rather than trying to perform in the world. I think we're often told, every makeup brand, because you're worth it. You're only worth it if you're wearing the latest this or that and the other. And I think for women, especially growing up in the West, it's quite confusing as to who you are and what you are, and you feel like you have to fit in and you have to wear the latest designer clothes and have the latest designer handbag. But under all of that, at some point you kind of wake up. And the undress method is a free three-phase journey of undressing first of all. So as I said, removing that mask, removing those old identities, and then the awaken phase is more around, I guess, waking up to your true self, coming back to yourself, but remembering. It's a path of remembrance. So it's not about trying to fix the old identity. I think most of us try and, we've got an issue and we try and fix the old identity, but actually it's the identity that needs to be released. So rather than saying like unveiling, I go for undressing. As you know, I'm trained as a yoga teacher, and so we use these kind of, lifting the veil. And for me, the undressing was because of work, being in fashion and working in the beauty industry and just being involved in growing up in, with Vogue covers and all of that. For me, it was a case of it's more about undressing, peeling back, and then actually when you get to that point of remembrance, you come back online, your power comes back, you become more whole, and then these codes kind of activate within you. You remember your creativity, you remember your wholeness, you remember your power, you remember your sovereignty, and you just come back online as a whole being rather than thinking that something's missing, which is why we're chasing these things, right? So that's the next phase. You get the undress, you get the awaken, and then in my experience at least, most religions or most spiritual paths take you to the point of awakening. So you remember yourself. And then what? My challenge has always been, and then what? Am I meant to just go and like sit in the mountains and meditate all day, like practice yoga? And what else is there? Surely there's something next. So from my own journey, I poured in the next phase, which is alignment. And that's really embodiment. So it's okay to know, most people know their vision. Most people know who they are once they're awakened, right? They know who they are and what they're about and what's truth for them. The hardest part is congruence. How do you live in alignment with that? Because that's where it's the messy middle. That's where the journey really starts, where you have to set those boundaries. You have to, really speak your truth. Most women are, in our society are being told to be quiet, look pretty. We don't speak our truth often, and because we're fearful of what that will mean and how we'll come across. So in the alignment phase, I've got this 9 dimensions. It's kind of more like traditional life coaching, where you've got these 9 dimensions. Once you know who you are, and then you've connected to something quite deep. I'm not going to say the word God, but I've said it. But it's more like, that universal intelligence. Once you've connected, and I don't mean just understand it in the brain, like cognitively, you feel it. Once you feel that, and it happens automatically once you've undressed, once
Mm.
you're back plugged in, once you've regained your energy, then the alignment phase comes in, and that's where you need a bit of hand holding, because that's I think the trickiest part of the journey is actually living in embodying what you know is your truth. Many
Mm.
people don't do that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I was thinking about Undressed.
Mm.
Is there a provocative side to Undressed, or is it very much about the soul?
So in the book that I've written, I talk about this character, and it's more of a habit. And I call her, I'm going to swear, so just, I call her the happiness whore. And I don't mean whore in terms of, a prostitute as we would know. It's almost like we're a happiness whore in the way that we're promiscuous with the ways that we try and find happiness and chase happiness. We're almost like magpies, jumping and running after the next dopamine hit, whether it's a man, whether it's a handbag, whether it's a promotion, whether it's the next course or the
Mm.
next career. We're chasing something. And for me, that chase is being promiscuous, because we'll pick it up and we'll go, that didn't give me what I thought it would, that lasting feeling. And
Mm.
therefore you jump to the next thing. So the promiscuous side for me is more of the undressing is the kind of happiness whore character. And I say in the book, finding your inner happiness whore, because we all have one. If we have lived in the world and we've been, shaped by the society in the West, we are used to pushing and striving and wanting that external validation.
Mm.
So we'll go from dopamine hit to dopamine hit to whether it's from a person or from an Instagram like, it doesn't matter. So there's that. But then to answer your question, I mean, there's a liberation side of it. I mean, I
Mm.
don't think, I use it metaphorically. I don't think everyone's going to walk around naked. Although when you go to these yogi retreats, yes, you do see a lot of that, because people do, undress physically as well.
Mm.
But for me, it's more, it's a liberation of the soul, you know.
Mm.
And whatever comes with that, if that's authentic for you to do more of that, to be more naked, then I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to undress.
Mm. When you were talking about your own journey of awakening and then using that phrase, and then what? I think that would be a great second book for you, wouldn't it? The book
And then
called And
what?
Then What? I think that would be really quite fantastic.
Well, the thing is, I've chopped and changed quite a lot. I mean, I was the typical happiness whore, hence why I ended up working in change management, because my career history in terms of roles and jobs is quite profound. I went from fitness to the ambulance service to running two companies, a marketing agency, a PR agency, then working because I change so often. I go into an organization, I'd turn it around, and then I get bored and then I need to leave. I was always chasing the next achievement. So for me, it's chasing achievements and chasing courses and academics. So I would always be learning. Hence
Mm.
why I've got so many certificates, which I get teased about often, the amount of certificates that I've got and qualifications. So yeah, I would say I was the typical happiness whore. Not being still, always being in motion, always being in movement. So
Mm.
I think the practice for all of us really is to find the stillness. And that sounds so cliche, because you think, and then what? But you have to sit there for long enough
Mm.
for the dust to settle. So an old friend of mine would say to me, Gemma, stop shaking the snow globe, let the dust settle. And what he was referring to is the thoughts. So once your thoughts have subsided and they've settled, there's a real ocean of stillness underneath within us and around us that we have access to all the time, but we're not plugged into it because we're always chasing something. So we're not aware of what's really available, you know, for us.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting. And what is it like having your own method?
Well, it just happened organically more than anything else. So it's almost like I was thinking of so because the book has taken me 7 years to write,
Mm,
and it's taken me 7 years to write because it's all lived experience. And therefore, I was like, "What? So, what is this? It's a method. It's a process. It takes you from being very performative to very sovereign, very disempowered to very empowered. There's lots of kind of before and afters that I can kind of go through. So, yeah, the method is it kind of gives something a structure because in the world we live in, the brain, there's two sides of it. We've got that kind of creative side which you tap into more so on the process. You kind of access more of that. But I think we live in a world where we need structure. And the brain, from a neuroscience perspective, needs structure, it needs a framework. So for me, because it's quite it can be seen for some people would say esoteric because I weave in neuroscience, but I weave in kind of Eastern philosophy as well as my insights. It's all very insight led. And it's also self-led for the individual going through the method. So I teach them to be self-led.
mm.
So they generate their own insights and their own learning and their own method. At the end of it, potentially, it depends how, they go through the journey. So, yeah, the method's been obviously patented and all the rest of it. So it's, yeah.
It's exciting. So in everyday life, Gem, how are you helping individuals and organizations go from performance to presence, burnout to alignment, and strategy to soul?
Everyone's on a different journey. So I'll meet people where they're at. And often straight away, I can see from the layers that I can see people, I'll know what they need first, depending, I can meet them on their journey. So within an organization, that's with change management, with organizational development, you're always working with people. So it doesn't matter if you're introducing a new piece of technology, you're working with the people first. Wherever we go, it's people first. But then in my own personal business, so Gem Dentith Global, which is the where the Undressed Method really resides, that is through the book that will be coming out soon. So launching the book soon, and then on the back of that, I've been coaching for many, many years. So retreats will be coming out soon based on the process of the undress method. There will be online courses for those who can't attend retreats. So there's a journey behind it. The book is probably the first thing. The second will be the course. The third thing will be the retreat. And then really just helping people to really stabilize their nervous system because that's kind of where it starts. Pull their power back, get back online, stabilize the nervous system, and then do the work.
Yes, it's really interesting. So when you come to say that you meet people where you're at and is this like intuition? Is this a gift that you have? Is this something that you've honed? What is that?
So we give away a lot. I mean, I've been working with people. It's part of everything you just said. It's a lot of it is probably intuition. A lot of it is through the training that I've had. A lot of it is very deep presence. So when I'm with somebody, I'm really feeling them. I'm really tuning into them. I can really see how busy their mind is. And I know for a fact if their mind is busy, then I know what's happening in their body. I'll know how inflamed they are. I'll know what's going on. I'll know how their relationships are going. So we give away signs all of the time. And I'm just picking up on these signals when I'm speaking with somebody, how they're standing, how they're sitting, what they're wearing, how much makeup they have on, how much makeup
Hopefully
they don't
none in
have
my
on.
case.
We're always giving away everything about us more than we realize.
Where should we really undress first? Should it be the mind, the body, energy, or purpose? Is there a
Oh,
place where you say this is where we should really look to undress first?
so that's a really good question. All I can say, let me answer that in two ways. So first off, with my personal journey, it started with the mind. So for me, it started with the mind first. Well, probably the body first, because I've been in fitness in the ambulance service as a technician, as a grade one paramedic for my first part of the career. So I'm used to seeing body signals and body symptoms. So that for me was probably already done. Most people start physically. So in yoga, for example, people start with asana before they go on to the mind. They're the later limbs. But when I was on my own journey, when I had my burnout, when I passed out on the train, I started with the mind, and I started with neuroscience, trying to understand really what's going on in my head. Let's get this on the table so I can inspect it, right? And what I did, I journaled and I journaled and I journaled and I journaled and I got it all out. I want to see what, for me, garbage was in there. Let's lift the bonnet and just get it on there because that's where you need to observe it. And self-inquiry is really observing the self, right? It's that kind of introspection, metacognition. So I started personally with metacognition, understanding my thoughts, understanding my beliefs, understanding where they came from, unpacking and undressing them. However, it's not the case of then you've got a positive thought, negative thought, and you've got a positive thought, and you need to kind of you should do that forever. And then you'll be in your mind and you won't be very present.
Mm.
So what I did was almost like understood the nature of thought. What is it? What's that stuff we call thought? And I don't mean from a neuroscience perspective in terms of neurons firing together and all of that. I don't mean any of that. I mean, what is it? How do we make those stories? What happens in the brain when we have a thought and therefore we have a feeling? How do I keep activating myself? How can I deactivate myself? So I really played around the thought space for a few years. And then it went on to understanding consciousness. What's consciousness? What's the nature of consciousness? And then it went on to understand, so what's the nature of it? So what if we've got thought and we've got consciousness, what else do we have? Oh, well, how are we alive? And then I was exploring like the universal intelligence source, the 0 point field. So it kind of went on and on and on. So I started with the mind and then it led on. But then we're a system, right? You can't just work on the mind. Some people do and then ignore the body and then you just eat awful rubbish, poor quality food for the body. You have to start somewhere. So for example, if you were my client and you said to me, well, and you were really calm, but you had all these symptoms, and I realized that your diet was a certain way, I would work with you on your diet and I'd clear that up because really you need a clear vessel. The clearer your vessel and the cleaner your vessel, the more you're going to be tapped in and tapped on, the more you're going to be connected, the more you're going to be grounded. So it's not an easy answer, because I would go to the person. So if you're struggling with physicality, start with physicality. If you're struggling with your mental side, start with the mental side. However, if you want to go right up the food chain, you'd start with energy. Because once you clear up the energy, everything else kind of cascades down from there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah. I knew it was going to ha be multi-dimensional. They all kind of go into themselves, don't they? It's
Yeah.
like it's an ecosystem, so you know it'll all lead to the same um like space,
Yeah.
but it has different dimensions with different, I guess, opportunities that on their own won't be enough, but collectively, it's really about the collective.
Eventually it is, but you don't see that initially. It
Right.
takes a while for you to realize that there is a collective because you think
Mm.
you're separate. So that at the beginning you're a separate self, and the journey to seeing that collective nature and the universal nature of everything is almost like a latter, unless I have a really amazing, overwhelming insight, which some of my clients do have. So I would say the first thing you need to do is sort out the feeling because you can't do any work unless you raise someone's vibration, raise
Mm.
their feeling state, but get them back into kind of more of what in neuroscience would say toward state rather than in the away state. In the away state, you're back in your fight or flight, systemic nervous systems. So, more of the stress hormones with flooding around the body.
Hmm.
So you'd want to reduce some of that first, which is why people start with yoga, because it starts to balance their body out.
Right,
Eating in the right way starts to balance your body out.
right.
Yeah, right thinking starts to balance your mind out. And then when you've come up to I go into levels of consciousness in my book. When you go up to the next level of consciousness, when you realize that you're not a separate self and you're in your mind space, then you feel like you've got more in control. When you're in the victimhood phase, you have to get out of the victimhood phase first. Survival phase. You're surviving, it's me against the world. That phase is quite, a lot of people live in society and they're stuck there. So the first step is to get them from survival into more creativity, knowing they've got, they're not helpless and they
Mm.
can have some accountability and responsibility for how they want to start to shape their life. Get them there, and then it all kind of goes up from there.
You talked a little bit about nervous system. I think I'd love to know what is nervous system recalibration and how are you actually going about helping people reset that? And is it something that we can do ourselves?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's many different teachings out there to kind of stabilize and reset the nervous system. First of all, you've got to figure out why is your nervous system destabilized? If you've been living in fight or flight, most people's nervous system is stuck on fight or flight, and they're living in chronic stress mode. And then and this is what I noticed in the ambulance service, most people are in chronic stress mode. And what that does then, it locks the body into a state of, well, you flood with cortisol to start off with, and that then releases all the systems start to break down in the body.
Mm.
You'll have like certain autoimmune diseases, your immune system is low, you'll catch viruses faster and, pick up bacteria faster. So often a lot of if you speak to most doctors, they'll probably say like 90% of the patients they see is due to chronic stress mode, which
Mm.
is your nervous system stuck in fight or flight. So your autonomic nervous system has kind of two states, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So it's about trying to understand that first. And it's a shame we don't get taught nervous system regulation at school. That should be the first thing on the agenda, how to keep your nervous system stable and
Yeah.
balanced. And we do have to go and flick in and out. It's not like you always need to be in the rest and digest. That's impossible
Mm.
because when you're running a race, you're going to be in your systemic and you need to be fired up. But it's about can you swing between the states and not lock into one?
Mm.
And that's
It's,
resilience.
yeah.
Yeah. So the nervous system, so for example, and again, it's not a one piece of advice that fits all. It depends on what's happening with your nervous system.
Mm.
Are you locking in to one side more than the other? So, for example, some people who are they have no drive or get up and go, you could say they're in their free state, or you could say they're just too chilled, and I'd want to try and activate them. So I might give them some activated exercises, could be a breath work, could be Ashtanga yoga, or if somebody is locked in and they're chronically stressed, I would want to look at their markers, their inflammation markers, and bring them down. How can I cool them? Because their body's going to be hot. So they need a cooling diet. They need more of an alkaline diet. They need more of a cooling breath. They need a longer exhale to calm the nervous system. They need to stimulate the vagus nerve to get them back into the right side of the nervous system for them. So yoga's great. Pilates, yoga, any form of exercise is great, but it
Mm.
depends on, again, knowing yourself. It always
Mm.
starts with where am I at? And it's not where am I at in life, it's today. What's happening within me today? And having the tools available for you, having the tools available for that person to be able to self-regulate. Oh, I'm noticing that I'm being stimulated or overstimulated. I might have been, for example, I don't know, driving to work and crazy traffic, and I just, you're all just kind of, your nervous system is all kind of geared up to have a fight. Then you know how to then, if you had the tools to regulate the nervous system, some slow, quiet breaths. When you go onto the stage, when you're speaking, before you go on stage, I'm safe. It's all about this nervous system safety. And it's not about how can the world make me safe. And this
Mm.
is where dependence comes in a relationship. We're going off piece to slightly, but when mostly women, I'd say, or maybe men as well, but when you have a dysregulated nervous system and then you outsource that regulation to your partner, they then become your source of safety. So when you're with them, you feel safe. When you're not with them, you don't feel safe. And that's where the anxiety then can kind of come up with the individual. So it's about how can you as an individual create safety yourself within your nervous system, no matter what's going on in the world.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think we, even if a man may not necessarily do that with a woman, he'll do it in other things like his job,
Yeah.
you know. So I think it's very much important that we know how we can soothe and calm ourselves and just be able to, regardless of what we face in life, just to be able to manage that in a way that's fair to ourselves, but also with a degree of class, and also brings other people calmness when we're calm. I've definitely seen that play out with the nervous system.
Yeah. We really need to understand our self. And what I mean by that is even how the world works, how your experience is created. I don't want to go too deep on the podcast, but once you understand how your experience is created, then you understand you don't get so triggered because the things outside of you, you know that you're going to be creating a narrative and a story around it, which then you trigger yourself. A lot of people say they triggered me. They triggered me. It's their fault. Into that victimhood mentality.
Mm,
When you understand the world only operates from the inside out, and we're always protecting, right? Once we understand that, or deflecting, right? Once we understand the world only works from the inside out, we have full autonomy and full responsibility to understand what's shaping our own reality. People think we have one reality and there's all these billions of people in the world, right? But we
mm,
have 8 billion people and 8 billion realities because we all have a different reality. And the
mm,
sooner we understand that and go to the nature of something, go to the source rather than actually trying to find a fix. We're always trying to find these quick fixes, which I talk about in the book. But if we go to the source of that suffering, because it's suffering, the
mm,
source of that loneliness, the
mm,
source of that sadness or the source of that shame, they're the things that often as humans, we're all universal that we all, have within us to work through. Once we go to the source and not try and outsource it, so come back to it and understand what it really is, then you don't suffer with those things anymore. You
mm,
don't feel disconnected, you
mm.
know.
We've only got a couple of minutes left. It goes so fast,
Oh my
like
goodness.
I was
Just getting
just
into it.
I know, yeah. I just wanted to ask you when when people come to you and you're
Yeah.
using your undressed method
Yes.
and you're uncovering things, is
Yeah.
there a common denominator of kind of, is there like one thing that you see over and over again that is just underneath the surface?
I think with most people, what they don't understand, well, there's probably more than one. Is like there's two things. They don't really know themselves energetically. They haven't undressed enough to understand their true nature, their truest nature. And that true nature, once they know that, again, not with their brain, not with me telling them. Once they tell me who they are, once we've undressed them enough, they'll say, I am, and they'll call off all of these terms, and the terms they'll use to describe themselves are the same terms that somebody else one of my clients will describe themselves. It's a universal self, which once they've undressed enough, they will reach. And then
Mm,
there's no unreaching that. You can't unknow something once you've actually felt it viscerally. So when they feel it, I can't then say, no, that's not right. No, no, I'm telling you, that's who I am. I feel it. So you can't, so it's not like you go on a course and you learn something. This is an experiential, it's the undressed experience. It's for them to really get to know themselves.
mm,
Most people don't go deep enough. You see, we're always too shallow. We're always on the surface. And it's not time that we need, it's depth. I can take someone deep in 3 days and get them undressed and realigned. That's what I do in my intensives. So but most senior leaders, they want a kind of a one-to-one and we'll do a deep dive and that kind of really close-knit container. I can do that with them. So it's not a time thing, it's a depth thing. It's an insight thing. So we've got these exercises where they'll go through these exercises to understand themselves, and I'll be pointing them like a tour guide. Look here, look here, look here. And then they'll tell me what they know because I know it. I don't need to tell them. I just set it up so they become to know it. And then they go, ah, and then they can't unknow it.
Mm. That makes
And that's
sense.
the transformation.
That makes sense. Once you've seen it, you can unsee it. Yeah,
Can't unsee anything once
I
you've
like
seen it.
that. Just awareness, bringing attention to helping people understand that they can listen in to themselves, but it is an art. It does take time. Um, I think that's really important to know, isn't it? Is that once we are aware that we can observe, as you said at the start, we can really reflect and sit and analyze, ourselves. That really does give us a real clear indication of where we need to explore a little more. And then obviously working with somebody like you really helps bring that into full picture.
So yes, the only thing I'd add there is it doesn't take time, it takes stillness.
Mm,
It's the pause. Everything's in the pause. Everything's in the space. So it's in the how still and how deep and how much space can we create in the mind? Then everything all almost happens automatically.
yeah.
If the brain keeps revving up, it's
Mm,
going to take longer to get there. So my
mm,
intellectual clients find it harder than the those who are more like the analysts in the organization, because in the organization that works for them to be analysts.
yeah.
Those individuals, they take longer because they're always trying to analyze it.
Yeah.
You have to drop it. Beginner's mind,
Yeah.
like they say in the Buddhism, beginner's minds,
Yeah.
once they've dropped into that,
Mm. The answer isn't in the head.
mm-mm, not at all.
It's been really fascinating, Gem. How do people find out more about you and your method?
So, my website, so just my name, so www.gemdentith.com. And I'm on Instagram. So will you put the Instagram handle in the link, will you? Or yeah, I
Yep.
am Gem Dentith,
Yep.
if you need to find it. So yeah, just I am Gem, first name, surname, Gem Dentith. And that's it, I think, yeah.
Beautiful. Well, it's been great to have you on the Brainz Magazine podcast and looking forward to seeing you on the front cover as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Bye.